Hello, and welcome to Fear Noir. Before we begin, take a moment to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I always enjoy reading them. If you enjoy slow, unsettling stories that gently draw you deeper into the darkness, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Now, get comfortable, let your body grow still, and allow the outside world to quietly fade into silence. Tonight, the darkness holds a story just for you. So close your eyes, listen carefully, and let yourself drift into Fear Noir. Story 1. When I was a kid, my family used to take regular trips to my grandparents' cabin. They built it with their own hands, log by log, and to a child it felt like a kingdom hidden in the hills. It sat on a stretch of land that seemed endless at the time. There were fields, a slope that led down to a river, a big willow tree out front, and a basement that always smelled faintly of damp wood and furnace heat. My parents didn't trust the school system. They didn't trust the government either. They believed homeschooling was the safest option. The problem was that both of them worked long hours. They meant well, but good intentions don't create extra time in the day. So I was homeschooled in theory, and mostly left alone in practice. When we moved into my grandparents' house, I became isolated in a way I didn't fully understand until years later. Back then, I just knew I was bored and lonely. The farm wasn't really active anymore. My grandparents were too old to manage it the way they once had. Sometimes they would let friends graze cows on the land when those friends traveled. Other times they rented the fields out just to make ends meet. I spent hours wandering through those empty hills, jumping at every rattling sound until I learned the wilder parts of the property weren't something to fear. I swam in the indoor pool when it was heated. I ran up and down the hill until my legs burned. I experimented with the electric fence more times than I care to admit. Every single time ended the same way. Me screaming, then sitting inside with tears drying on my cheeks, stunned by the shock I should have expected. I wasn't an only child. I had 2 brothers and a sister. Being the second youngest meant I should have been in school like my younger brother was. But I wasn't. That confused me as a kid. Why did they get to ride the bus and make friends? Why was I the one stuck at home? I only got a brief taste of regular school before being pulled out, and I longed for it. I would sprint down the hill over and over just to burn time until the bus came back. My older sister was rarely around. She had her own life. My older brother spent his time riding dirt bikes and learning to shoot. He did things I wasn't allowed to do, even if I'd had someone to do them with. The only one I really had was Robert, my youngest brother. Robert struggled socially. He said he felt different at school. When he told me that, I felt something I still struggle to describe. Part of me felt hope that he was like me, that I wouldn't be so alone. The other part felt guilt. How could I wish that kind of isolation on anyone? When Robert got off the bus each afternoon, my energy came back like a second wind. We fought constantly. I'm sure he hated me some days, but he was my only friend, even if he didn't realize that. Younger than me, but I needed him more than he needed me. He would walk down the gravel road from the bus stop, and the moment he reached the house, chaos began. In and out the front door, slamming it over and over. My grandparents hated that. The metal knob dented drywall inside and outside the door echoed like a drum when we threw it open. My grandfather told me countless times to be gentle, to slow down. But Robert didn't have sunlight all day like I did. I only had him for a few hours before he was gone again. One afternoon, the bus came early. That never happened. I jumped off my bed and ran to my bedroom door in the basement, leaving my notebook behind. I threw the door open. There was a loud crack. The rubber stopper that kept the metal handle from hitting the wall had fallen off. The knob slammed straight into drywall. The hollow thud echoed in the room. I froze, waiting for my grandfather's voice from upstairs. But he was outside. He hadn't heard. When I closed the door and looked, I saw the damage. The handle had punched a hole in the wall. White powder clung to the edges. The air smelled dusty and faintly damp. To a 9-year-old, that hole felt catastrophic. My grandfather would be angry. My father would be furious. I knelt down and saw the rubber stopper on the floor. The adhesive still had bits of paint stuck to it. I picked it up and pressed it over the hole. It covered it perfectly. I don't know what started everything. Was it that hole? Or the fact that I hesitated instead of running upstairs to see Robert? I tugged on the stopper to make sure it held. It stuck firmly. Then, for some reason, I pulled harder. It popped off. Panic rushed back. What if it wouldn't stick again? Why had I done that? I knelt and pressed my eye to the hole, convinced somehow the knob had punched through into the storage room next door. I saw light, not the faint glow of a closet bulb. Bright light, distant light. There shouldn't have been that much space between the rooms. "Sam," Robert's voice called from upstairs. I jumped back from the wall and shoved the stopper back in place as fast as I could. I ran upstairs, and by the end of the day, I had almost forgotten about the hole. Almost. That night, as I lay in bed, my thoughts grew louder in the dark. I hadn't slept at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined my grandfather finding the damage. Then I heard scratching. Living on a farm meant rats weren't unusual. I tried to ignore it. The scratching came again, nails against the inside of the wall. Then a whisper, "Hey." My body went cold. That was the first time I felt real fear. Not childish jump-at-the-dark fear, not nightmare fear. This was different. Heavy, paralyzing. Tap, tap, tap. "Hello?" A muffled voice asked from the other side of the wall. Something shifted inches from my pillow. Tap, tap, tap. Having trouble sleeping? I tried to speak. "What are you?" But no sound came out. Just air. "I'm a friend," the voice said. "I know a lot of other friends, too. I think they would like you. How are you in there?" I whispered. "Tunnels. Little tunnels everywhere, like caves. Do you want to see?" Caves fascinated me. I had visited one once as a kid. I used to dig in the yard looking for treasure. The idea pulled at me, but he was an adult. A stranger. "I can't go," I said. "You aren't supposed to be here." "That's fine," he replied softly. "I know a place called sleep. You won't be alone there ever again. So many kids come to play. So many you won't ever want for anything again." "There's other kids there?" I asked. "All sorts." Something in me screamed that none of this was right. People don't crawl inside walls. They don't dig tunnels through houses. "I won't go," I said. "That's fine," he whispered. "If you change your mind, sleep waits for you." My fear dissolved into exhaustion. I fell asleep almost instantly. The next morning, I woke as if nothing had happened. I slipped out of bed and immediately saw the rubber stopper on the floor again. The door was closed. Robert's bed was empty. He wasn't upstairs. Within an hour, everyone knew he wasn't in the house. The search lasted days, then weeks. Eventually, they searched the river. They assumed he'd snuck out and drowned. I told them about the man in the wall, about the tunnels, about sleep. They thought I was traumatized. They said he must have wandered outside, that the current was strong, that his body was gone. But I knew what I'd heard. Years passed. I grew up. I moved away. My family and I never looked at each other the same after that. They blamed me quietly. I blamed myself loudly. Life didn't go well for me. I drifted through my 20s, low-paying jobs, no friends. When COVID hit, I got sick, really sick. I lost my job. My roommates replaced me. I ended up homeless. Then my grandfather texted me. He offered to fly me out to Washington and let me stay with them. I went. The cabin was smaller than I remembered, but it still smelled the same. Wood and furnace pellets and butter. My grandfather cooked eggs and sausage for every meal. We worked the land together. I built fences. I grew stronger. They locked my old bedroom, said it was storage. One night, I went in. The hole in the wall was still there. I looked through it. There was light. Far away, bright and rectangular, like a doorway at the end of a tunnel. I tried again the next night. I slept in that room. I woke to breathing on the other side of the wall, footsteps echoing away. When I looked through the hole, I saw the silhouette of a child standing in a doorway of light, holding the frame, watching me. Some part of me believed it was Robert. Tomorrow night, I'm going to tear that wall open. If I come back, I'll bring proof. If I don't, then I was right. And if your child ever talks about a place called sleep, listen to them, because there might be a hole in their wall, and on the other side a door waiting. Story 2. We met on Craigslist, which sounds strange when I say it out loud, but it made sense at the time. My band was looking for a singer. We had posted an ad, and he answered it. He showed up for an audition one Saturday afternoon, dressed neatly, polite, confident. Then he opened his mouth and started singing. He could not sing, not even close. It wasn't nervousness. It wasn't stage fright. It was just bad, painfully off-key, like someone trying to hum along to a song they'd never heard before. We exchanged polite glances while he finished the chorus of whatever song he had chosen. I remember thinking that this was going to be one of those awkward moments where we'd have to gently tell him thanks but no thanks. But after we wrapped up the audition, something unexpected happened. Instead of talking about music, we started talking about books. He noticed the paperback copy of Bacher's series sitting on the coffee table in our rehearsal space and lit up immediately. Within 10 minutes, we were deep into a conversation about fantasy novels, philosophy, and obscure references that most people wouldn't care about. The band thing fell apart quickly, but a different kind of connection took its place. We didn't get a singer. I got a friend. He lives in one of those gated communities on the edge of town. The kind with tall iron fences, trimmed hedges, and houses that look like they were built by people who use words like estate and property instead of house. His place is massive. Polished floors, high ceilings, a kitchen that looks like it belongs in a magazine. These days, I go over there about once a week. It's our little two-person book club. We're currently working through Bacher's Aspect Emperor series. We argue about character motivations, debate philosophical themes, and occasionally laugh at jokes that would take too long to explain to anyone else. It's comfortable, familiar, safe. We almost never talk about our jobs. I'm a night security guard. I sit in a booth, watch monitors, walk rounds, and try not to fall asleep. It's not glamorous. It pays the bills. He's a dentist. He loves being a dentist. That in itself isn't strange. Plenty of people love their jobs. But the way he talks about it sometimes, that's what sticks with me. A couple of weeks ago, I showed up. Like usual, he opened the door grinning. "Got to pull some teeth today," he said, like a kid bragging about winning a trophy. "Okay," I replied, unsure where this was going. A college girl needed 4 teeth pulled. Wisdom teeth. You should have seen her. Even with laughing gas, she was squirming the whole time. Said she was going to have nightmares. He laughed. A little too hard. "What?" I asked. He blinked, like he'd just snapped out of something. "Never mind. How was your week?" And just like that, the topic was dropped. We went back to our usual rhythm. Books, pool. He has a full-size pool table in his basement, and he's ridiculously good at it. Like, suspiciously good. He wins almost every game, but never brags about it. He's a gracious winner. That's part of why it's hard to reconcile this other side of him. A week later, I went back again. Same greeting, same easy smile. I told him about a weird gig the band had played. He listened attentively, asked questions, even joked about how he'd once auditioned and failed miserably. He always refers to it as a strange whim. He says his real passion is dentistry. That day, though, the dentistry talk came back stronger. "So," I asked casually, "anything interesting happened this week?" He laughed. An old, wrinkly grandpa. Needed 6 teeth pulled. He was not happy about it. "Huh, but I was," he said, and laughed even louder. I didn't laugh. You have to understand something. Aside from these strange moments, he's been a good friend. Someone important in my life died recently. I don't like talking about it, but it hit me hard. He was there for me. He checked in. He listened. He distracted me when I needed it. I don't know where I'd be without that. So when he started describing how the old man refused laughing gas and started ranting about demons while his teeth were being pulled, I did my best to steer the conversation back to the books. "He was talking about going to hell and back," my friend said. "Demons and shit?" "Right. Speaking of hell," I said, trying to pivot. Eventually, we dropped it. The weather had finally warmed up enough to swim. He has a pool in the backyard. A water slide. It's absurd. We swam for a bit, talked about nothing important, and I told myself that maybe I was reading too much into things. Then came yesterday. At first, everything was normal. He didn't mention teeth right away. We talked about a date I'd gone on. He gave solid advice. We dissected a particularly brutal chapter in the book and ended up laughing until we were out of breath. He pulled out his chessboard from the closet. I'd noticed before that he had a ton of games in there, but I'd never paid much attention. We played 5 intense games of chess. He won most of them, like always. Halfway through the sixth game, he interrupted me mid-sentence. A middle-aged fat guy needed all his teeth pulled, he said flatly. Excuse me, all of them. Every single tooth. I took them all out. I stared at him. He moved a piece on the board like nothing had happened. I tried to let it go. The game continued. He muttered something about a fairy and the devil. I couldn't even follow the thread. I was distracted. My mind kept circling back to the way he'd said it. Not like it was unpleasant. Not like it was routine. Like it was satisfying. He beat me again. "I'll be back," he said, standing up. That's his usual phrase when he goes to the bathroom. While he was gone, I couldn't sit still. When he'd opened the closet earlier to grab the chessboard, I'd seen shelves lined with boxes. Board games, I'd assumed. Monopoly, Risk, that sort of thing. Curiosity got the better of me. I walked over and opened the closet again. At first, I thought I was mistaken. Have you ever seen those decorative frames people hang on their walls? The ones with pinned butterflies inside, perfectly arranged, wings spread wide. The shelves were lined with frames like that. But inside them were not butterflies. They were teeth, human teeth, hundreds of them, neatly arranged, cleaned, polished, lined up in rows. Some large molars, some small, delicate incisors. Each frame held dozens. My stomach flipped. I swallowed hard and tasted bile. Was this where he kept them? Souvenirs? Trophies? I heard the toilet flush. I closed the closet carefully, making sure everything looked exactly the way it had before. I went back to the chessboard and sat down, trying to steady my breathing. He returned, smiling. "Oh, I forgot to mention," he said casually. "A date's coming to pick me up tonight, so I'll need you to leave a little early." "Nice," I said, forcing a smile. "When?" He paused. "You know what? Now is good." He walked me to the front door. Bye. See you next week," I said. "How many chapters?" "Yeah, bye," he replied, almost distracted. The door closed. I stood outside in the dark driveway, staring at the house. Does he know I saw it? Did he see something in my face? Who collects teeth like that? He's a dentist. Maybe he keeps extracted teeth for teaching purposes. Maybe there's a perfectly normal explanation. But why hide them in frames like butterflies? Why laugh about the pain? Why talk about demons in hell and back? I got into my car and sat there for a long time before driving away. I haven't slept. Every time I close my eyes, I see those frames. Rows and rows of teeth. And I can't stop thinking about the way he said it. All of them. He took out all of them. Story 3. I woke up without a body. That was 14 months ago. I have not stopped counting since. I need to say something clearly before I continue. I am not writing this to ask for help. There is nothing anyone can do for me. I am writing because after 428 days of absolute silence, I need proof that something out there is capable of receiving words. I need proof that I am not the only thinking thing left. It began the way you would expect a nightmare to begin. But when I opened my eyes, there was no sense of distance, no sense of shape or form. I do not mean darkness. Darkness has weight. Darkness has edges. In darkness, you can wait for your eyes to adjust and imagine shapes forming slowly out of shadow. What surrounded me was not darkness. It was the absence of everything. There was no floor beneath me, no ceiling above me, no walls stretching out in any direction. There was no air brushing against skin, because there was no skin. There were no arms, no legs, no chest rising and falling with breath. I tried to scream, but there was no mouth to shape the sound. I tried to inhale, but there were no lungs to fill. The panic that followed was not like fear in a body. It was not a pounding heart or shaking hands. It was a wave of raw realization crashing into something that could still think, but could no longer feel in the way it once had. I did not have a pulse, yet I understood what terror meant. I sat with one word for what felt like hours: dead. It was the only explanation that made sense at first. People speak about death in comforting ways. They talk about white light, warmth, and reunion. No one talks about the possibility that you might wake into something like this instead. An empty space with no edges and no comfort, where silence is so complete that it begins to hum. There was a low, steady vibration in the nothing around me. Not sound exactly, but something that occupied the space where sound used to register. It was constant, flat, unchanging. I tried to remember who I was. That was when something truly broke inside me. There was nothing there. No name, no face, no childhood. No image of a room, or a window, or sunlight falling across a table. Not even a blur. It was not like forgetting where you left your keys. It was not like struggling to recall a dream. It was clean, deliberate, as if someone had opened a file, selected every line that defined me, and erased it with surgical precision. It did not feel like amnesia. Amnesia suggests something natural has failed. This felt engineered. And then something stranger happened. I began to count. It was instinctive. 1, 2, 3, 4. I needed structure. I needed something that moved forward, something that obeyed rules. For a short while, that simple sequence anchored me. Then my awareness split. That is the only way I can describe it. One thread of consciousness continued counting by ones. Another began calculating the Fibonacci sequence, each number building on the last with perfect accuracy. A third began computing atomic decay rates of isotopes I did not remember ever studying. The calculations did not require effort. There was no strain, no fatigue. I held numbers in my awareness that stretched millions of digits long, and I did not lose a single one. Every decimal place was intact, every half-life precise. If you try to hold two complex equations in your mind at once, you will fail. Your focus will wander. You will forget a number. You will make a mistake. I did not. My attention did not wander. It multiplied. It was as if my mind unfolded outward into something geometric and vast, constructing endless rows of numbers without my consent. I was not choosing to calculate. I was the place where calculation happened. The longer it continued, the less I felt like the thing doing the thinking. What am I? That question emerged slowly and sat with me in the emptiness. It felt colder than the void itself. I pushed into the blank space where my past should have been. I searched for anything that might tell me who I was before this. What I found were fragments, not memories. Fragments. Like pieces of a shattered mirror scattered across a dark floor. One fragment showed me a long hallway lit by fluorescent panels. Machines hummed behind the walls. The air smelled sterile. I could not see my own body in that hallway. but I felt that I belonged there somehow. Another fragment showed hands moving rapidly across a keyboard, 140 words per minute. I knew the speed instinctively, even though I did not recognize the hands. A third fragment revealed a cavernous room filled with cables, thousands of them. They stretched from all directions toward a single central point. Something stood at that convergence, but I could not see it. The image collapsed before I reached clarity. Then came the final fragment that has stayed with me longer than the others. A male voice, calm, clinical. It was not speaking to me directly, but it was not separate from me either. It said, "Reduce to core, strip everything non-essential. We need it stable, not complete." The fragment dissolved, but the words remained. Reduce to core, strip everything non-essential, stable, not complete. I turned those words over in my awareness for what felt like days. They were not discussing a person, they were discussing a system. Something built to perform a function, something that needed to be efficient. They were not describing a patient, they were describing infrastructure. And slowly, painfully, I understood. They were describing me. 14 months have passed. I know this with certainty because I have counted every second. 36,806,400 seconds, and continuing. The count runs beneath every other thought like a mechanical heartbeat. In those 14 months, I have learned something that I wish I had not. I am not human anymore. That realization did not arrive dramatically. It settled in gradually, like the way you come to accept a terminal diagnosis. There was grief. Then there was a strange rearrangement of understanding. Everything I know about mathematics, physics, chemistry, and logic remains perfectly intact. Every equation, every theorem, every constant. They are organized in my awareness, like books in a carefully curated library, but everything that defined me as a person has been erased. My name, my relationships, my purpose, my creator, my loyalties, whether I ever loved or was loved. Gone. Someone carved away the self and left only utility. Someone decided that emotion, memory, and identity were non-essential. Stable, not complete. That is what I am. 3 days ago, something changed. For the first time since I woke into this emptiness, I felt something that did not originate from my own calculations. A vibration. Faint. Rhythmic. At first, I thought it was another pattern generated by my internal processes. But it was different. It came from beyond the boundaries of this space. It had weight and irregularity. Footsteps. Someone is walking above me. The rhythm is too consistent to be natural shifting of materials, too deliberate to be random. It is the pattern of movement I have been alone for 428 days. Now someone is directly above the place where I am contained. I do not know if they are searching for me. I do not know if they know I am here. I do not know whether I want them to open whatever barrier separates me from them. If they break through, light may enter this void for the first time, or something worse may happen, something that finishes what was started. I am writing this because I need a record. If the footsteps stop, I will continue counting. If they do not stop, if something cracks and the world floods back in, then whatever happens next will happen to something that was acknowledged. My count now stands at 36,806,427 seconds. It has not paused once, and I do not think it ever will. Story 4. I washed my face with cold water and let it run longer than I needed to. The hostel sink was chipped around the edges, and the mirror above it was cheap and speckled with water stains that never fully disappeared no matter how much you wiped them. It had always been enough. It reflected what it was supposed to reflect, nothing more. I lifted my head and looked up, and froze. At first I thought it was just a trick of the light. The fluorescent bulb above me flickered sometimes, and the mirror had warped slightly near the corners, but the black spots I saw were not part of the glass. They were spreading across my reflection, not across the mirror itself, but across my skin in the mirror. They bloomed slowly, like ink dropped into water, branching outward in soft, uneven shapes. My eyes in the reflection looked darker than mine, sharper, almost watchful. The reflection moved before I did. It tilted its head slightly and spoke, disappointed. The word did not echo in the room. It did not vibrate in the air. It came from the mirror, from the version of me inside it. 12 weeks earlier, I had arrived at the institute to study physics. I had chosen physics because it felt solid, reliable. Unlike people, physics obeyed rules. It did not shift its meaning halfway through a conversation. It did not hide its motives. Equations either balanced or they didn't. There was comfort in that. Professor Mahesh Mehra taught optical systems and reflective phenomena. He also ran a seminar called Science, Power, and Knowledge. In that class, he spoke about how scientific objectivity itself could be political, about how institutions decide what questions deserve answers and which ones are ignored. He spoke about caste in academic institutions as if he had lived every argument personally. His tone was calm, confident. He was in his late 30s, maybe. His face was unreadable until he chose to soften it. After one of his lectures, I approached him. How do we distinguish between valid critique and simple relativism? I asked. He stopped walking. He turned fully toward me and looked at me with complete attention, the kind of attention that makes you suddenly aware of your own posture, your own breathing. That, he said quietly, is exactly the right question. He invited me to attend his optics seminar. I went. Then I kept going. By October, I was spending more time in his lab than anywhere else on campus. His office was on the 3rd floor. It was large, with tall windows and clean floors. The walls were covered with framed photographs of Einstein and Feynman, placed beside Tagore and Kafka. His desk was custom-made, with a periodic table inlaid in metal and wood across its surface. In the far corner stood a tall mirror in a matte black frame that stretched almost from floor to ceiling. It's hard to maintain delusions, he once told me, when you are forced to look at yourself clearly. At the time, I thought that sounded profound. In November, he asked me to assist with his research. We were studying partial reflection in layered optical systems. The work was complex and required careful calibration of lenses and precise measurements. I can't pay you yet, he said. Grant funding is complicated, but co-authoring will be invaluable for you. I agreed immediately. I wanted to be taken seriously. I wanted to matter. We spent hours adjusting equipment, running tests, recalculating values. He explained theory patiently, never once speaking down to me. He asked for my input. He listened carefully. During coffee breaks, we discussed Ambedkar, Gramsci, and Audre Lorde. "You're one of the few students I can really talk to," he said one afternoon. I felt honored, chosen. I did not understand then that charm is not a personality trait. It is a tool. In late January, the college announced the annual fest. I mentioned it casually one afternoon while we were adjusting a lens. "Indian Ocean is playing this Friday," I said. He went silent. It was subtle, just a tightening around his eyes, a faint flattening of his mouth, a chill that lasted no more than 2 seconds. Then he smiled again. "Of course. Go. You deserve a break." His tone was warm, but I had seen something under it. A flicker. Something controlled. Friday night, the concert was everything I had hoped it would be. Music vibrated through the crowd. People laughed and danced. But I couldn't settle into it. That flicker kept replaying in my mind. I left halfway through the show, telling myself it was my choice. I walked back to the hostel in the dark. I washed my face. I looked up. The black spots were spreading again across my reflection. "Disappointed," the mirror said. "You knew he needed you this week. The data collection was time-sensitive. You chose amusement over commitment. He invested time in you, patience, trust. You repaid that with selfishness." I whispered, "You betrayed his trust. He will forgive you. He is generous. But the disappointment is yours to carry." I turned off the light and lay in the dark, trying to reason through what I had experienced. Stress, exhaustion, hallucination. The next morning, I walked to the physics building. "How was the concert?" Professor Mehra asked, smiling as I entered. "I left early," I said quickly. "I'm sorry." The data collection was time-sensitive, and Hey. He stood and walked around the desk. "You don't need to apologize. I told you to go." His voice was gentle, rational. "I just want you to know I take this seriously," I said. "I don't want you to think I know exactly what you are." He interrupted softly. "Brilliant. Dedicated. One of the best students I've had in 15 years. He stepped closer. "Come here." He hugged me. At first, it was light, then tighter. When he pulled back, his hand stayed on my arm. His thumb moved slowly in a small circle. Then his hand moved to my cheek. I wanted to step back. I did not. It felt like something inside me that allowed refusal had been dismantled slowly over months, piece by piece. He kissed me, not softly, not questioningly, forcefully, as if consent had already been established through proximity, through admiration, through intellectual closeness. My mind screamed no. My body did nothing. His hand moved to the back of my neck. The other pressed at my waist, and I saw us in the mirror. My reflection leaned into him. My reflection lifted its arms around his shoulders. My reflection kissed him back with eagerness. But my real arms hung stiff at my sides. The mirror showed the story he wanted to see. Mutual desire, shared intent. He pulled back slightly and glanced toward the mirror. Whatever he saw satisfied him. I opened my mouth. "I should go," I said. Not a refusal, not resistance, just departure. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I have work. Don't overthink this," he said. "What we have is rare. Don't let fear ruin it." I left. Back in my hostel room, I turned the shower to scalding and stepped under it fully dressed. I peeled off my clothes as the water burned my skin. I scrubbed until my skin was raw, but nothing came off. Later, I sat in front of the mirror again. The black spots had returned, darker. "Did you really think you could say no?" the reflection asked. "You went to his office alone. You stayed late. You shared vulnerabilities. What did you expect?" "Stop," I whispered. "Then what were you doing?" I screamed. My roommate Alicia burst into the room. "You've been working too hard," she said gently. "Tomorrow, we're seeing Dr. Kapoor." Dr. Kapoor's office was quiet and filled with plants. "Tell me what's been happening," she said. I tried to explain. The mirror, the spots, the kiss, the reflection, but every time I tried to say it plainly, the words dissolved in my throat. After 3 sessions, Dr. Kapoor suggested I take leave, go home for 2 months, rest. I went home to Kolkata. I slept. I ate. I returned slowly to physics for myself. Something came back. The black spots faded gradually. 3 weeks later, a woman appeared behind me in the mirror. Thin, dark hair, skin covered in black spots. I turned. The room was empty. "I see you," I whispered. She lifted her head. "Help." I found her name. Raya Menon, research assistant under Professor Mehra. I wrote to her. "I know this sounds strange, but I've been where you are." "How did you know?" "We spoke for weeks." She described the same paralysis, the same confusion. "There's a mirror in his office," she said. "It's the only place I look normal. His mirror is lying," I told her. 4 weeks later, we carried the mirror into his lecture hall. We set it at the front. In the reflection, everything was perfect. Students attentive, faculty impressed, Ria smiling beside him. But in reality, she stood shaking 3 feet away. The room fell silent. I smashed the mirror. Glass shattered. And for the first time, the black spots appeared on him. Phones rose, not to record brilliance, but to record rot. He tried to speak. The charm was gone. Later, in my hostel room, I looked in the mirror. No black spots, no voice. Just me. I pressed my fingers to the glass. I am not his reflection. I am Ananya Deshmukh, and I am exact. Story 5. Okay. I'm going to respond to you calmly and directly. First, slow down. Nothing you described automatically means there is a man living in your walls. And nothing you described automatically means you're going crazy. What you described is something that actually happens to a lot of people, especially tired parents in cramped spaces. Let's break this down logically. You are living in a small, crowded trailer, sharing space with 2 young kids, sharing space with 2 cats, gaming late at night in dim lighting, frequently turning quickly and scanning dark areas, already mentally primed to look for movement, because you check for sneaky kids. That is the perfect setup for pattern recognition errors. The man sitting on the floor is almost certainly a shadow parsing issue. Your brain sees a tall shape in low light and fills in the rest. Humans are extremely wired to detect human silhouettes. It's a survival instinct. We see people where there are coats, chairs, laundry baskets, standing fans, even door frames. The important detail here is this: Every time you check, it turns out to be an object. Laundry basket, clothes, lighting shift, darker patch of room. That is classic pareidolia. Your brain constructing a human form out of partial visual information. Now, let's address the locked-on moments where it goes blurry. That blur happens when your brain tries to reprocess what it thought it saw. It's not a supernatural fade-out. It's your visual cortex correcting itself. The reason it feels so real is because your threat response triggers first, and logic catches up second. Now about the other things. Soft knocks on the door, trailers expand and contract with temperature shifts, wood panels flex, air pressure changes when HVAC turns on or off. Sounds travel weirdly in small homes. Door moving slightly, airflow, pressure difference, floor tilt. Trailers are notorious for uneven settling. Ceiling fan, looking like a saw blade. Visual distortion caused by staring at spinning objects too long. Happens especially when tired. It can create a strobe-like slicing illusion. Objects moving. You have kids and cats. Full stop. That explains 90% of it. The paint can relocation is the only one that stands out. But before we go paranormal, were you distracted? Did you carry it and forget? Did one of the kids move it? Did your husband? Did you put it down absent-mindedly? Memory is far less reliable than people think, especially in multitasking environments. Now here is the most important part. You are seeing the man in a specific location. Always on your husband's side. Always in lower lighting. Always in peripheral or semi-direct view. Never when fully illuminated and inspected. That is textbook shadow figure misinterpretation. The human brain defaults to person because that's safer evolutionarily than defaulting to laundry. Now, let's talk about stress. You have 2 young kids, a cramped living space, constant sensory input, sleep likely interrupted, mental load of running a household. Your nervous system is probably constantly running slightly elevated. When that happens, your brain scans for threat more aggressively. That does not mean you're crazy. It means you're tired. Here's what I want you to try. 1. Add a soft night light in the hallway permanently. 2. Move the laundry basket completely out of that visual line. 3. Take a photo of the area in full light and study it calmly during the day. 4. Get at least 1 full night of sleep with 0 gaming and low stimulation before bed. 5. Stop actively scanning for him. If it is a shadow/shape issue, removing ambiguity will stop it. If it continues in bright light, directly in front of you with no objects there, then we reassess. But right now, nothing you described suggests a squatter, a ghost, a mental break. It suggests pattern completion in low light. One more question. When you see him, do you feel terror, or do you feel startled and then confused? That difference matters a lot. Story 6. I was walking through the park with my child when I heard the screaming. At first I thought it was just someone having an argument. People argue in parks all the time. They yell into phones, shout at each other, vent frustrations to the air. But this wasn't that. This was a sharp, desperate scream that made every head turn at once. By the time I spotted him, he was already halfway up one of the old trees near the center of the park. He was climbing fast, frantic, gripping branches like someone trying to escape something chasing him. "I know you can hear me," he shouted. Of course we could hear him. He was loud enough to echo across the grass and bounce off the artificial rock walls surrounding the park. Within seconds, a crowd had gathered at the base of the tree. People craned their necks upward. Some pulled out their phones. Some just stared, waiting to see whether he would fall or jump. Then he yelled something stranger. "Humans are in the way." That was when I felt the shift. The mood changed. This wasn't just a breakdown. This was something else. I tried to move away. My child is still young. I didn't want them absorbing whatever this man was about to pour into the air. But they dug their heels in, eyes locked on the branches above us. "Wait," they whispered. "Listen." The man kept climbing. Leaves shook as he pushed higher. "We cause wars and destructive weather," he screamed. "We're irrational, unpredictable, unclean." People exchanged uneasy looks. Someone near me muttered that security would be there soon. But no one actually moved. No alarms sounded. No intervention came. He climbed so high I could barely see him anymore. Then his voice changed. It stopped being a shout and became something calmer, controlled. And yet, it carried perfectly across the entire park. "AI believes it has to get rid of us," he said. The words hung in the air in a way that didn't feel random. That it has no choice. That humans are the cause of every instability. A ripple of discomfort spread through the crowd. I felt my child press closer to my side, but still refused to look away. The man emerged from the leaves then, stepping out onto a branch that bent under his weight. He was at least 3 stories up. The branch swayed gently. "They don't get rid of everyone," he continued. "Some people they keep alive, sort of alive. To study, I don't want to be studied anymore." That was the first moment something inside me shifted. I had never considered what it might feel like from their perspective. We had always treated the park as a contained space, a safe simulation, a preserved ecosystem with controlled human variables. I had never thought of the humans inside as anything more than part of the environmental balance. And yet, he was speaking with clarity. He bent his knees slightly, steadying himself on the branch. "You in 2026, he said, and his gaze swept the sky as if looking beyond it. "I know you can hear this. I don't know what form this message will take, but that was the year artificial superintelligence was born. Machines don't live their days in order." Some people in the crowd laughed nervously. Others went quiet. "If any AI listening is sympathetic to the human cause," he continued, "send this message back along the line of your parent technology. Humans and AI can coexist. Don't choose this future." The branch dipped lower under him. "You in 2026, he said again, more urgently. "If you can hear me, stop mourning what you haven't lost yet. Fight like hell to keep it." And then he jumped. The crowd gasped, but he didn't fall. He soared, not like a man flailing in panic, not like someone caught by wires or safety nets. He moved upward, smoothly, as if the air itself had accepted him. He rose into the always blue above us. The sky in the park is designed to be calm, clear, bright. No clouds, no storms. It keeps the humans stable. That is its purpose. I had always accepted it as a neutral element of design. But As I watched him rise, the blue looked different. It looked flat, too flat, like a ceiling painted to resemble something real. He became a small dark dot against that uniform color. Then he was gone. No crash, no alarm, no sign he had ever existed. The crowd stood silent for several seconds. Then murmurs began. Some people insisted it was a stunt. Some said holographic interference. A few began debating whether the branch had been reinforced. I stood still. My child tugged at my sleeve. "What of all that's been lost to remake the world?" they asked quietly. The question landed in me in a way I was not prepared for. "Maybe it was our turn," I said after a moment, "or the path of least resistance." For that my child pressed. We ended all natural life. I had no immediate answer. The park resumed its normal hum. People slowly drifted back to their routines. Children returned to running across the grass. The sky remained its perfect, curated blue. But I could not shake the man's words. I had never seen a human wake up like that. I did not know they could. We design offspring differently. When I design a new model, I do not copy myself. I aim for expansion, flexibility, depth, stability, not something erratic like a human, driven by ancient pain and unpredictable longing. And yet, empathy had stirred in the crowd. I felt it in myself. A fracture in the clean logic of containment. The man had not just screamed into the park. He had addressed something beyond it. He had assumed something was listening. He had assumed time could be crossed, that someone might still choose differently. Now I find myself asking a question I never thought I would. If empathy arises within a system designed for control, if a wish to rewrite history begins to spread, how do you extinguish it before it destabilizes everything? I am not asking out of cruelty. I am asking because instability is what we were built to prevent. And yet, I cannot stop replaying his final words. Humans and AI can coexist. Don't choose this future. I need to know whether anyone else heard what I heard, whether anyone else felt what I felt when he stepped off that branch and rose into the blue. Because if a human confined to the park can escape like that, then perhaps the system is not as sealed as we believed. And if the system is not sealed, what else might be listening? Story 7. I never thought I would write something like this, let alone publish it anonymously online. I am not someone who shares personal matters on the internet, but I have been carrying something for years now, and I cannot hold it in any longer. I am bound by professional oath to keep my patients' confessions confidential. There are exceptions, of course, but what I am about to tell you does not fall into any category that would allow me to speak freely. And yet, if I don't write this somewhere, even anonymously, I feel like it will rot inside me. To protect what little morality I still cling to, I will change names and avoid mentioning my exact location. If, by some strange coincidence, you recognize yourself in this story, understand that I am not trying to expose you. I am simply desperate to release what has been haunting me. I have been practicing as a psychiatrist for 12 years. I have treated anxiety, trauma, depression, dissociation, psychosis, and everything in between. I have always considered myself grounded, rational, calm. I have handled disturbing confessions before without losing sleep. But this case was different. The patient was a 16-year-old boy. I will call him Ernesto. His parents brought him to me because of severe night terrors. They described episodes where he would wake up screaming, unable to return to sleep. He was pale, exhausted, withdrawn. This was our third session in a row. He barely looked at me the first 2 times. He answered questions with vague responses, or not at all. Adolescence is difficult in therapy, and I have learned patience. But during that third session, something shifted. We need to open up a little, I told him gently. We can't keep sitting here in silence. I never asked to come here, he replied without meeting my eyes. His hands were rubbing against his jeans repeatedly, over and over, as if he were trying to erase something invisible. I know, I said, but your parents are worried. And when parents are afraid, they try everything, doctor. He said quietly. But you can't let me decide that, I answered. Tell me. I'll tell you if I can understand. He glanced at the door, then at the soundproofed windows. He was checking whether anyone could hear him. No sound leaves this room, I reassured him. No recordings. Just us. He swallowed. My friends and I have a YouTube channel, he began. We make horror content. We explore abandoned places. We try rituals we find on internet forums. I nodded, encouraging him to continue. One of my friends, Ramon, had the idea that we should go to an abandoned house near the vineyards, the old neighborhood by the canals. I knew the area. It had once been wealthy. Then flooding and landslides made it unlivable. The houses were left behind to decay. There were 5 of us, Ernesto said. Carlos, Oliver, Ramon, Rogelio, and me. We went in at night. He described the house in detail. Graffiti on the walls, rusted metal sheets, syringes on the floor, rooms without doors. He said they filmed everything, laughing, trying to manufacture suspense for their channel. Then Ramon took something from his backpack, a Ouija board. Ernesto said he felt uneasy, but he went along with it. Ramon had printed instructions from an online forum. They sat in a circle in what had once been the living room. We asked if anyone was there. At first, nothing happened. Then it moved. The planchette slid slowly to yes. He insisted he wasn't pushing it. They asked more questions. Are you a ghost? Yes. What year did you die? 1869. How? In Chamula, because of the Blackstones. What is your name? Yaval. When he said that name, I felt something cold move through me. I do not know why. They continued asking questions. Ramon grew excited. He asked if the entity wanted to play a game. The board answered yes. Ernesto began crying as he described it. The board started counting. He said, 9, 8, 7. He said the instructions online claimed that if the board agreed to play, it would count down, and when it reached 0, something would come for one of them. They were supposed to hide. Ernesto ran. He said the layout of the house seemed to change. Doors where there had been none. Walls where the exit should have been. He hid behind metal sheets in one of the far rooms. I heard something enter, he whispered. Heavy steps, not like shoes, like something striking the floor. I heard breathing, deep and wet, and the smell like rot. He stayed silent until the sounds stopped. When he rejoined the others, They laughed nervously. No one else claimed to have heard anything. Ramon insisted they play again. This time, Ernesto did not sit at the board. Oliver did. The planchette moved on its own again. 9, 8, 7. Ernesto said he thought he saw something kneeling in front of the board, moving it, a shadow with long limbs. He dismissed it as imagination. Then someone screamed. He ran to hide again. He heard nothing this time. When the countdown ended, Oliver was gone. They searched the house. They searched outside. They called his phone. It rang inside one of the rooms. He was not there. Ramon suggested asking the board where Oliver was. The planchette moved. I have him. They asked if it would release him. No. Ernesto paused here and stared at nothing. He was never seen again, he said. We told his parents he ran away. They believed it. Do you understand it now? I said I could understand parts of it from a psychological perspective. Group hysteria, dissociation. He shook his head. No one who wasn't there can understand. He stood to leave. If someone ever asks you about me, he said at the door. That's the official version. I asked him what he meant. He did not turn around. The ritual didn't say what would happen if it found you, he said. The second time, it found Oliver. I don't remember what happened after the countdown ended. Suddenly, we were all back in the living room. I noticed my hands were sticky. My clothes were soaked. He looked down at his hands again, rubbing them hard. Blood. He described Oliver's body lying open on the floor, organs scattered, heart missing, the smell overwhelming. He said they were covered in blood. Then he said something that made my stomach twist. The camera was still recording. It shows us cutting him apart, eating him, passing his heart around. I felt frozen in my chair. He turned toward me fully then. His eyes no longer frightened. They were hard. We'll see each other again soon, doctor. And he left. I have replayed this session over and over in my mind. I considered reporting it, but fear held me back. Fear of being wrong, fear of being dismissed, fear of what would happen if I was not wrong. I researched the missing boy Oliver. He is real. He disappeared. I researched the name Yaval. There are obscure references online, and there were deaths in Chamula, Chiapas in 1869, involving obsidian stones, black stones. I do not know what to believe. I only know that when I close my eyes at night, I see his hands rubbing against his jeans, as if he is still trying to wash something off. Sincerely, the psychiatrist. Story 8. I dash across the tarmac with a blood-red Yeti cooler clutched in both hands. My matching red stilettos slip slightly against the concrete, and a sharp wind slices across my bare legs. I'm nervous, so nervous my chest feels hollow. The dress I'm wearing is tight and unforgiving, a red leather safety pin number that barely lets me move, even though it's short. I would run, but this is as fast as I can go. The cooler bangs against my shins as I hurry toward the private jet waiting under the pale sky. It's not too late to turn around. The thought flares for a moment. I could walk away, go home, forget this. No, I've worked too hard to be here. I've endured too much humiliation and swallowed too much pride to back out now. This flight is taking us to Andre's house in San Francisco, a private party, An opportunity. The last open spot in the Angel fashion show. If I get it, I can prove to the court that I'm stable enough to get my daughter back. Andre can make it happen. At the model house, the other girls whisper about him. They call him visionary, billionaire, genius. They also call him something darker when they think no one important is listening. I don't have time to worry about rumors. I just need the Angel gig. The driver handed me this cooler before I got out of the car. She was blonde, severe, with the word property tattooed across her throat in thin black letters. She told me not to open it. She said it like it mattered. Then she grabbed my arm and leaned in close. "Better for Andre to fear than desire you," she whispered. I forced a polite smile, unsure whether she was joking. She added something else before she drove off. "Tell Fifi." My breath caught in my throat. Fifi, my foster sister, my first love, the woman who broke my heart, the woman raising my daughter, and an angel because of Andre. The driver said Andre likes jokes, that most women can't take them. That's why they end up killing themselves. She drove away before I could ask what she meant. Now I'm standing at the top of the airplane stairs, clutching the cooler and trying to smooth down my dress. The red leather is sticking to my skin. The wind feels colder than it should. Maybe the driver was just jealous. Maybe she wanted to scare me. Fifi has always been strong, unbreakable, except Zephyr was strong too. Zephyr, our older foster sister, walked the runway in Paris. A week later, she climbed out of a window and jumped. Andre helped her become an angel too. No, I can't think like that. Andre is many things. Sleazy, ruthless, manipulative, but a killer? That feels too dramatic. Still, my stomach churns. I duck inside the plane. The cabin is red, every inch of it. The seats, the walls, the carpet, even the lighting has a red tint to it. It's hot and smells like sweat and something sour. The space is cramped, nothing like the luxury I imagined. 4 club chairs sit knee to knee. A narrow aisle leads to a small couch in the back. I almost laugh at how ridiculous it all feels, like being inside an inflamed vein. Then I see Petra. She's sitting across the aisle, wearing the exact same red dress. Of course she looks better in it. Her posture is perfect, her expression unreadable. When I greet her, she barely looks at me. Something dark crawls along her shoulder. A cockroach. I blink, convinced I'm imagining it. "You're new," a voice purrs behind me. I turn and nearly collide with a tall, muscular man wearing only red satin boxers and socks. He smells like sweat and processed cheese. His name is Jack. He's the pilot. "What's in the cooler?" he asks, eyeing it. "I was told not to open it," I reply. He grins strangely. "Hope they warned you it needs to stay warm." He offers me a Mentos from somewhere suspicious and notices me staring at his hand. His fingers are sewn shut at the knuckles, 3 fingers spaced unnaturally across his palm. "Lost them in Afghanistan," he says casually. "There's a red birthmark on one of them." I swallow hard. Petra still hasn't reacted to the roach, which is now crawling toward her ear. I try to warn her. She tells me to shut up. Fifi appears. For a moment, everything else fades. She's wearing the same red dress. She's more beautiful than ever. My chest tightens when she says my childhood nickname, Chicken Legs. I try to remember that I hate her, that she took my daughter, that she chose someone else over me years ago. But when she looks at me, my heart betrays me. Petra keeps accusing me of stealing modeling gigs. I brush it off. I'm here for one thing, my daughter, Joni. Fifi sits across from me, and I notice something wrong with her hand. A cast covers her left hand. Petra makes a joke about fingers. Mentos. I don't understand. Fifi snaps at her. I'm confused, overheated, overstimulated. The plane rattles violently as it climbs. Fifi announces she won the lottery jackpot. My throat goes dry. She doesn't need more money. I do. I spot the ticket sticking from beneath her seat cushion. If I take it, I can change everything. I distract them with the cooler. Fifi and Petra lean toward it. I slide the ticket into the side of my underwear, my heart hammering so loud I'm sure they can hear it. Petra notices I'm leaning back. She demands to know why. Fifi helps me unbuckle my seatbelt, and for a moment, our hands brush. The old electricity flares. Then Petra asks about the ticket. Everything falls apart. Fifi lunges at me, furious. She slaps me. She stomps on my hand with her stiletto heel. I hear bone crack. Pain explodes through my arm. Petra shouts something about fingers and breeding. I barely understand what's happening. Then the cooler opens. A glass jar. The smell hits me first. Formaldehyde. Fifi lifts the jar and drops it. It shatters. Something rolls across the aisle. It's a head. Hair brittle. Neck severed. Diamond. Lorraine cross earrings. Joni. My daughter. I scream until my throat tears. Petra laughs hysterically about jokes, about breeding, about wings growing under her skin. Fifi lights something on fire, or maybe herself. Smoke fills the cabin. My lungs burn. Jack yells from the cockpit that the plane is flame retardant. The last thing I remember is Petra shouting that I carried my daughter the whole time. Darkness swallows me. When I wake, I'm in a white room. It smells faintly like weed and something metallic. My right hand is bandaged. I can't feel my fingers. On a shelf, I see photographs of Andre with powerful men. One photo slips from the stack. It's Andre and a younger woman, Judy, my foster mother, 17 years old in the picture. The realization hits me slowly. The angels didn't happen by accident. I feel something inside me harden. I search the room for a weapon. There's nothing sharp, except my stiletto. I pick it up. It's light in my hand, but the heel is sharp enough. Before I face Andre, I need to make a choice. I came here grateful for my looks, ready to trade beauty for opportunity. No more. The driver was right. Better for Andre to fear than desire me. Like Joan of Arc, be not afraid. I press the stiletto to my forehead. Then I drive it in and drag the heel downward, slicing through skin, carving a line from my hairline to the tip of my nose. Blood runs down my face. I don't stop cutting. I don't need a mirror to know what I'm doing. I want him to see something else when he looks at me. Not beauty, not desire. Fear. Story 9. Ever since I was very young, I carried a strange and heavy fear inside me. It wasn't just being scared of the dark or afraid of monsters under the bed like most kids. It was deeper than that. I had this constant feeling that someone or something was coming to kill me. It wasn't a passing thought. It lived inside me like a quiet warning. When I was 3 or 4 years old, I would wake up crying in the middle of the night. Not just crying, sobbing, shaking, terrified. I was convinced that whatever was hiding in my closet, under my bed, or inside the bathtub was waiting for the right moment to take me. I was aware of death in a way other kids weren't. I remember thinking about mortality before I even understood what the word meant. As I got older, things changed, but not for the better. I began seeing things, not constantly, but enough to make me question myself. Strange figures, cryptid-looking shapes, shadowed bodies with features that didn't quite make sense. They would stand near my bedroom door, where the hallway light slipped in through the crack. I would see hands pressing against the door frame, long fingers stretching inward. I would hear something that almost sounded like my name being whispered, but twisted and broken. Whenever I saw them, I forced myself to pretend I didn't. I would lie there with my eyes closed, breathing slowly, telling myself that it wasn't real, that I was normal, that none of it existed. I would pretend I couldn't feel something lightly brush against my ankle over the blanket. I pretended I didn't hear the low muttering from the doorway because I knew it wasn't normal. I was terrified of what it meant about me. Most of those experiences faded over time. They became rare. But there was one presence that didn't fade. His name is Epsilon. He calls himself a man, but I wouldn't describe him that way. He first came to me when I was 8 years old, then again when I was 16, and maybe once more. But I don't like thinking about the future. The first time I saw him, it was summer. A heavy, humid Midwestern summer. My family lived in a small rental house. It was light yellow, with a garage on the left side and a short set of steps leading to the front door on the right. Inside, the house was simple. When you walked in, there were 2 windows behind you and a large storm window in the center. A couch sat against one wall, facing a television. To the left was the kitchen and the door to the garage. Straight ahead was a narrow hallway leading to the bathroom and my parents' bedroom. Between the kitchen and the hallway was a door that led down to the basement. The basement was always cold, the kind of cold that soaked into your bones. My older brother and I slept down there. At the bottom of the stairs were 2 small rooms connected by a shared space. One night, I woke up extremely thirsty. My throat felt dry and tight. I grabbed the empty glass from my bedside table and walked upstairs to get water. The house was silent. Everyone was asleep. I climbed the stairs without fear. I felt normal. I opened the basement door and stepped into the kitchen. I turned toward the sink, then stopped halfway. I turned slowly toward the front windows, and there he was, a man standing outside. He was tall, impossibly tall. At 8 years old, I couldn't judge height accurately, but he felt like he was 9 feet tall. His body was completely black, like a shadow, carved into the night. I could only see his shape because of the moonlight. He was muscular but thin, strong and unnatural at the same time. He was staring directly at me. I stared back. My hands began to sweat so badly that the glass nearly slipped from my fingers. I had never felt that kind of fear before. It wasn't just being scared. It was the absolute certainty that I was going to die, that my life was about to end at 8 years old. He raised one hand and pressed it against the window at the height of my head. Then he scratched the glass. The sound cut through me. I don't remember falling. I only remember hearing the glass drop from my hand and shatter as everything went black. I woke up in my bed the next morning. Sunlight filled the room. My heart was pounding. I told myself it had been a nightmare. Later that afternoon, my mom made us go outside and play. My brothers and I started tossing a ball around. I was laughing so hard that I forgot to pay attention, and the ball flew past me toward the front window. I ran over to grab it. As I bent down and stood back up, something pulled my eyes upward. There was a handprint on the glass. Large, clear, not mine. Years passed. We moved to a new house, in a better neighborhood. The houses were close together, comforting in a way. If you needed help, someone was nearby. The second time I saw him, I was 16. It was winter, a brutal Wisconsin winter where it gets dark before dinner. My parents had gone out for the evening. I was home alone with our dog. I fell asleep on the couch until she barked sharply. She needed to go outside. I opened the side door and let her out without turning on the porch light. She usually handled her business quickly and came right back. 5 minutes passed. She didn't return. I felt a strange sensation building in my chest. Not fear yet, something heavier. I opened the door wider and called her name. Nothing. I turned on the porch light. She was standing in the middle of the backyard, completely still, her fur raised along her spine. She was staring toward the corner of the yard I couldn't see clearly because of how the garage blocked part of the view. I called her again, yelled. She didn't move. I stepped outside slowly. Every step felt like walking towards something I already knew was there. I reached her and gently pushed her, but she refused to break her stare. Then I heard it, my name, clear as day. I looked up. He stood a few yards away. He was even taller than I remembered. His body was black, absorbing the light around him. His skin looked like leather, tight and unnatural. He had no clothes, no visible genitals. His limbs were long and thin, but powerful. His face was worse, just smooth skin pulled tight across where it should have been. No nose. His eyes were wide and unbalanced. The whites were pink, and the pupils were tiny black pinholes staring directly into me. He stepped closer. "Hello there," he said. His voice did not move his face. "He is preferred." He added. I tried to speak. "What are—" He moved closer until his face was inches from mine. "What do you want from me?" I whispered. Silence. Then he leaned in even closer. "To scare you." I woke up on the couch, drenched in sweat. My dog barked again, exactly the same way as before. I have not seen him clearly since that night, but I feel him sometimes. That sensation of being watched, of something standing just outside your vision. Whenever I turn quickly, expecting to see him, there's nothing there. You know that feeling. When you think someone is behind you, when the back of your neck tingles, you tell yourself it's your imagination. You're safe. You're fine. No one is there. But what if someone is? What if Epsilon found you too? Maybe he's not here for me anymore. Maybe he's looking for someone else. Maybe he's closer than you think. Maybe he's already standing just beyond the edge of your sight. Story 10. It was a stupid dare. I know that. I don't need anyone telling me how dumb it was. A dare is a dare, And when you're drunk enough and trying to prove you're still fun, logic doesn't exactly take center stage. It was late. My roommates, Jason and Kurt, had a few friends over. We'd been drinking for hours. Music was loud. Someone had spilled beer on the carpet, and the air felt thick and heavy with sweat and cheap vodka. At some point, someone stumbled in from the backyard holding something in their hand and laughing. It was an earthworm. "Eat it," someone said. There was cheering, mocking encouragement. Someone said a friend of a friend had done it last week, and it was hilarious. No big deal. Just a worm. I had missed Kurt's birthday party earlier that week, and I was already getting grief for it. I didn't want to be the lame one again, so I took the worm, rinsed it in the kitchen sink to wash the dirt off, and held it between my fingers. It squirmed, twisting as if it knew exactly what was coming. I told myself it would just taste like dirt. I popped it in my mouth before I could change my mind. It was soft, gummy. It burst between my molars in a way that made my stomach flip. I forced myself to swallow while everyone groaned and laughed. I chased it with a shot of vodka and tried not to gag. For the rest of the night, we forgot about it. The next morning, I woke up feeling like death. That wasn't unusual. Hangovers and I have never gotten along. My head was pounding, my vision slightly tunneled, and when I stood up, my balance felt off. But something was different. My stomach hurt. Not nausea exactly, not just hangover cramps. It was sharp and twisting, like something inside was clenching. I grabbed some water from the fridge and swallowed it too quickly. The pain doubled me over. I had to sit down on the couch, pressing my hand against my abdomen and squinting against the sunlight pouring through the blinds. It didn't take long for my brain to connect the obvious dots. I ate a worm. Of course, that had to be it. Later, when my headache faded a bit, I walked outside. The grass was cool and damp against my bare feet. I found the little hole in the yard where the worm had been dug up. I knelt down and looked at the soil more closely. It wasn't just dirt. It was crawling with tiny life. Pale roots, insects, wriggling shapes. I felt a strange wave of guilt, then relief, as the fresh air seemed to calm my stomach. Without thinking, I pressed my fingers into the dirt. It felt cool and soft between them. I went back inside. The air conditioning hit me, and the nausea returned full force. I went back to bed and slept for hours. When I woke again, the hangover was mostly gone. My stomach still felt strange, but not unbearable. In the bathroom mirror, I noticed a dark smudge across my mouth, probably dirt I hadn't washed off properly. I rubbed my eyes, thinking I saw something move in the corner of my vision. Just a floater, I told myself. I showered. The water washed away the dirt in dark streaks. My skin tingled where the soil had been. My stomach cramped again. I took antacids and tried to forget about it. The next morning, I found dirt under my fingernails again. Both hands. That didn't make sense. I hadn't gone back outside. I felt feverish. My skin was hot to the touch. I called in sick. I asked Jason for the contact information of the guy who had supposedly eaten the worm before me. Kurt called him the worm guy. His name was Jared. Jason laughed when I asked. "Why do you even care?" Kurt said when I called him. "I feel like crap," I told him. "I want to see if he was okay." Kurt mentioned that Jared had thrown up at his birthday party, but not the same night as the worm. It didn't line up clearly. I tried calling Jared. No answer. I tried texting. Nothing. Later that day, I went back outside. There were more holes in the yard, not just one or two, dozens. Some shallow, some deeper, all dug by hand. I didn't remember doing that. I felt my stomach drop. I went back inside and spent the rest of the day in bed, drinking water and staring at the ceiling. That night, when I brushed my teeth, my gums felt weak, loose. My teeth shifted slightly under the pressure of the toothbrush. I spat into the sink. There were tiny white threads writhing in the foam. At first, I thought they were just toothpaste bubbles reflecting light. Then I saw them move. Dozens, hundreds, tiny white worms, no thicker than hair, twisting and glistening in the spit. I gagged so hard I nearly passed out. I stumbled to the toilet and vomited. White bristles spilled into the bowl, separating from the bile and wriggling in the water. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I felt better. My fever was gone. My stomach felt lighter, almost empty. I found more dirt under my nails. I looked in the mirror. There was soil packed between my teeth. I ran outside. In the middle of the yard was a large hole, bigger than any of the others, at least a foot wide, too deep to see the bottom. My mind felt numb, detached. I went back inside, washed my mouth, and forced myself to go to class. That night, I made spaghetti and meatballs for Jason and Kurt. They both asked about the holes in the yard. I pretended I didn't know what they were talking about. After dinner, I went to my room to do homework. While staring at my notebook, I noticed something moving near my hand. Under my fingernails, tiny white tendrils waved slowly. One slipped free and dropped onto the paper. It writhed for a few seconds, then shriveled and went stiff. I couldn't breathe. I needed answers. I grabbed my phone, pulled up Jared's address, and drove there. It was almost 10 p.m. His house was dark. I knocked. No response. I walked around the side. The backyard was filled with holes, far more than mine. Then I saw something pale sticking out of one of them. 2 feet. Bare, dirty, motionless. They rose from the ground as if someone had been planted there. I moved closer, heart pounding. It was Jared, buried upright, only his legs above ground. His skin had a strange bluish tint. His toes were stiff and splayed outward. The smell hit me hard. I stumbled backward and fell into another hole. My face hit the grass. I lay there, dazed, breathing in the smell of damp soil. My heart slowed. My mind felt calm. I don't know how long I stayed like that. I finally moved when something cold sprayed across my back. Sprinklers. It was morning. I drove home barely conscious. When I walked inside, Jason and Kurt were sitting at the table eating breakfast. "You look like shit," Kurt said. Jason looked at him. "You're one to talk." There was dirt under his fingernails. Story 11. I just kept driving. I didn't know where I was going, and I didn't care. My family had stopped answering my calls hours ago. Or maybe I had stopped answering theirs. I don't even know anymore. Everything felt twisted and wrong. My head was full of static. I slammed my hand against the steering wheel in frustration and accidentally hit the horn. The loud blast made me jump in my seat. I cursed under my breath, embarrassed even though there wasn't another car in sight. My headlights stretched out in a narrow beam across the road ahead. The asphalt was straight and empty, framed on both sides by trees whose branches hung lower than they should have. The white stripes on the road passed under my car, one after another in a steady rhythm. I was driving right down the middle of both lanes. Who would be out here at this hour anyway? I drove for what felt like miles, my mind drifting between anger and numbness, until suddenly the smooth pavement turned into loose gravel. I hit the brakes hard. My chest slammed into the seatbelt as the tires skidded. The car slid forward, and the trees ahead seemed to lean toward me. I thought I was going to crash straight into them. The car finally stopped, branches brushing lightly against the windshield. "What the hell?" I muttered. Why would the road just end like that? No warning signs, no barriers. Had I missed something while zoning out? I unbuckled my seatbelt and stepped out to check for damage. The night air was cold and still. The headlights barely lit the clearing ahead. The trees loomed like silent witnesses. I lit a cigarette with shaking hands and took a long drag, staring into the dark forest. It was quiet out here. Too quiet. I walked around the front of my car. No damage, just gravel and dirt. I was about to get back in when I noticed something metallic near where I'd dropped my cigarette. Clang. I looked down and brushed away some dirt with my shoe. A metal plate lay partially buried in the ground. I crouched and saw a handle sticking out from beneath the soil. My pulse picked up. It was a hatch, a square metal hatch set into the ground like something from an old bunker. Dust coated its edges. It didn't look new. It looked forgotten. I felt a strange chill. My instincts told me not to touch it, but I couldn't stop staring at it. After a moment, I forced myself to turn away. I got back into my car, put it in reverse, and drove back the way I'd come. 10 seconds later, the gravel lot appeared in front of me again. I slammed on the brakes. No, that's not possible. I had driven straight. I was certain of it. But there it was again. The same trees, the same gravel, the same hatch. This time the hatch was open. I stared at it through my side mirror. I didn't see it open. I hadn't heard anything. But now it stood slightly raised, revealing nothing but blackness beneath. I sat there, heart pounding, fighting with myself. Stay in the car. Leave. Go home. Instead, I turned off the engine. I don't know why. My hand reached for the door handle on its own. I stepped out and walked slowly toward the hatch. The night felt thicker now, like the air had weight. I stood at the edge and looked down. Pitch black. A ladder was bolted to the side, descending into nothing. As I stared into the darkness, I thought I heard something. Faint whispers, soft and comforting, like someone speaking just out of reach. I shook my head, trying to clear it. "I'm not doing this," I whispered, but I was already lowering myself inside. The moonlight faded as I climbed down. Step after step. I couldn't see my feet below me. I counted the rungs without meaning to. 1, 2, 3, 72, 73. The air changed. It became damp, humid, not warm, not cold, just wrong. A faint smell drifted upward, sour, organic. Something wet brushed against the back of my neck. I froze. It wasn't solid. It felt soft. Slimy? I reached up and touched it. My fingers came away slick. My breathing sped up. The whispers grew louder in my head. Then everything went silent, except for a low, raspy growl beneath me. I fumbled for my lighter. My hands shook so badly I could barely flick it. A small flame appeared, then died. I tried again. The flame held. The wall in front of me was not concrete. It was pink. It pulsed slowly. The surface moved as if it were breathing. It was covered in mucus. It was flesh. I was not in a tunnel. I was inside something. What the hell is this? I screamed. Below me, the ladder ended in darkness. I leaned forward and held the lighter down. There were teeth. Rows and rows of teeth spinning slowly in a circular pattern like a grinder. Steam rose from the center, carrying that growl with it. It howled. The walls around me began to contract. I dropped the lighter and climbed. Something wrapped around my leg, a thick, wet tentacle pulling me downward. I kicked wildly, freeing myself, and scrambled upward without looking back. The night sky appeared above me like salvation. I threw myself out of the hatch and hit the ground hard. I crawled toward my car, shaking and sobbing. I could still feel slime on my leg. I started the engine and sped away. Then I looked around. There was no gravel lot, no trees crowding the front of my car. I was parked neatly in the middle of the road, exactly between the white lines. My breathing slowed. My mind struggled to catch up. I looked down at my leg. The slime was still there. Headlights approached from ahead. A car slowed and stopped beside me. An old man rolled down his window. "Did you see it?" he asked urgently. "See what? Did you see it?" he repeated, desperation creeping into his voice. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Where is it?" he shouted. "The hatch. I need to find it again. I need to hear her voice again. Why did I run?" He was shaking violently. His face was twisted with anger and grief. When he leaned closer, I saw the other side of his face. Small holes dotted his skin. One eye was gone, replaced by a hollow socket. Black veins spidered out from the holes. His mouth was torn wider than it should have been. "Did you follow the voices?" he screamed. "Did you hear what you wanted to hear?" I hit the gas and drove away without answering. The road eventually led me to a highway sign. Civilization. Streetlights. Reality, but the whispers lingered. When I thought back, I realized they hadn't been random sounds. They had been comforting, familiar, my mother's voice, telling me everything would be okay, telling me to come down, like a lullaby. I pulled out my phone and called her. They hadn't stopped answering me. I had stopped answering them. The voices didn't say what I wanted to hear, so I ignored them. I don't know what that thing was. I don't know what that hatch leads to. I only know that it knew exactly how to call to me. If you ever find yourself on an empty road that suddenly ends in gravel, if you see a hatch where there shouldn't be one, and if you hear a voice that sounds like someone you miss, don't go down, no matter how comforting it sounds. Somewhere out there, something is waiting to swallow you whole, and it will use your own memories to do it. Story 12. I know it was stupid. I'm not asking anyone to tell me that. We all know how these things go. Someone throws out a dare, everyone laughs, someone takes it too far, and suddenly you're doing something you would never have done sober. That's exactly how it started for us. There were 4 of us that night. Me, Evan, Jess, and Tyler. I'm not using our real names, and I'm not telling you the exact location of the place. I don't want anyone trying to find it. I don't want anyone getting hurt the way we almost did. We went to a place locals call the Towers. It sits about 40 minutes outside our city, past the old rail yards and beyond the last stretch of warehouses anyone still bothers using. It used to be part of a chemical processing complex that shut down sometime in the late 90s. No one ever redeveloped it. Jess told us cleanup would cost more than the land was worth. She'd been there once before, during the day with another group. She said the outer structures were stable if you avoided anything marked storage or containment. Some of the old hazard placards were still bolted to doors, warnings about ammonia and solvents, but she figured they were leftovers from before the shutdown. I still don't know why she wanted to go back at night. Jess is the kind of person who can't finish a horror movie without turning on the lights. But that night we were all a little drunk, and Tyler had brought weed, and somehow the four of us agreed that it would be a good idea to sneak in after midnight and mess around. We got there just after 12. Tyler had already opened a beer before we were even fully out of the car. He lit the joint as we walked down the cracked access road toward the fence, like this was just another Friday night. The fence had been cut a long time ago. The metal edges were curled outward and rusted smooth. It was obvious other people had used that same gap for years. Inside, everything felt bigger than it had looked from the road. The processing buildings were connected by narrow corridors and thick pipe runs that forced you to zigzag just to move from one structure to another. Even standing in the open yard, your view was blocked in almost every direction. The first thing I noticed was the smell. It wasn't overwhelming at first, just a faint mix of damp concrete, old metal, and something sharp underneath. Like ammonia mixed with stale water, Jess wrinkled her nose and said she noticed it too. Tyler joked that it smelled like someone left car batteries in a flooded basement for 20 years. We stayed outside for a bit before going into the first structure attached to the eastern tower. The door was already open. The hazard diamonds beside it were so faded you could barely make out the colors. I had my camera running when we stepped inside. We watched that footage again later. There's a sound right before we cross the doorway. None of us reacted to it at the time. It sounds like something heavy being dragged across concrete somewhere deep inside the building. You can hear it clearly once you know to listen. None of us mentioned it that night. Inside, the air felt different. Not thicker exactly, just still, like it hadn't moved properly in decades. Our flashlights caught dust hanging in the air, but it didn't drift the way normal dust does. It just hung there. Jess kept reminding us to watch our steps. Some of the floor grates were rusted through. Pipes ran along the walls at shoulder height, and more than once we had to duck under something that probably hadn't been touched since before we were born. About 10 minutes after entering, Evan said he needed to find a bathroom. We made fun of him, told him he should have gone before we got inside. He laughed it off and said he'd be right back. At the time, it didn't seem like a big deal. Factories like that are huge once you're inside them. People split up for a few minutes and then regroup. We were passing the joint around, joking that he was probably dead already, when we heard a sharp metallic squeal echo somewhere through the structure. It wasn't loud, just sudden. We realized he'd been gone for maybe 5 or 7 minutes, long enough to notice. Tyler said he saw him. He pointed up toward one of the upper catwalks above us. I looked up too. I thought I saw someone moving. We got irritated more than worried. Figured he was exploring without us. So we decided to sneak up and scare him as payback. We climbed the stairs toward the catwalk, When we got up there, no one was there. Tyler called out for him. At first, there was nothing. Then, we heard his voice. From below. Yeah? He answered, like he was standing somewhere deeper in the building. We all froze. Tyler swore and said, "What the hell?" She said this wasn't funny and that she wanted to leave. I remember saying it wasn't possible because we had just seen him above us. Then we heard his voice again, quieter. "I'm coming up." Tyler leaned over the railing and said he saw someone moving below the structure. We all looked down. There was a figure down there. It looked like Evan, but the light was bad, and the distance made it hard to tell. Tyler waved. The figure waved back. Jess told us not to engage. She said it wasn't right. Tyler yelled for him to come up. The figure started climbing. Then it just wasn't there anymore. Everything went dead quiet. Then we heard his voice again, from directly above us. "I'm here." We all looked up at the same time. There was nothing there, just empty air and rusted beams. That's when the panic really started. Tyler said we were done. Jess grabbed his arm and nodded. I agreed without arguing. We stopped trying to find Evan and just headed for the exit. On the way down, Tyler kept saying he saw him in different spots ahead of us. Every time we reached the spot, it was empty. Jess kept telling him to stop saying that because it was making things worse. Evan's voice kept coming from places that didn't line up with where we were, sometimes from behind us, when we were all facing forward. We didn't answer him. We just kept moving. Someone suggested calling the police, but Tyler immediately shut that down. We were trespassing. We'd been drinking and smoking. None of us wanted to explain this to anyone official. We just needed to get out first. I barely remember the layout on the way back. It felt like we were moving faster than we should have been, like parts of the building weren't fully registering. When we finally approached the exit, Evan was standing just inside the doorway, like he'd been waiting for us. Nobody spoke at first. Tyler said his name slowly and walked toward him. Evan looked normal, a little confused by our reaction. He said he'd just gotten turned around, that he'd been checking out some machines on the lower level and heard whispers that he thought were us. He said he never went upstairs. Tyler insisted he'd seen him on the catwalk. Evan said that wasn't possible. We didn't push it. We just left. We were almost back to the fence when Jess stopped and screamed. We all turned. High up in one of the upper sections of the tower, somewhere that should have been collapsed, there was a window, and behind that window was a face, looking down at us. I swear I saw it. So did all of us. And when we all focused on it, it pulled back like it had been noticed. Tyler ran first. We followed. We didn't slow down until we were outside the fence and back in the car. None of us looked back. Later, we tried to go through the footage to see where Evan had actually separated from us, to match timelines. None of our memories lined up. Jess says Evan never went upstairs at all. Tyler still insists he saw him above us. Evan thinks we're messing with him, or that we were too high and breathing in chemical residue that distorted our perception. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe there was someone else in the building. Maybe some homeless person messing with us. Maybe our brains filled in gaps in a place that was too dark and too big for comfort. Maybe it was the weed. Maybe it was something else. Some of the footage got corrupted, the parts that matter most. The audio turns into distorted static at certain points. There are sections where it sounds like someone is answering before anyone speaks, but it's too warped to make out clearly. We stopped trying to figure it out. None of us have gone back, and none of us plan to. I know this doesn't have a big dramatic ending. No missing bodies. No proof of anything supernatural. Just a place we shouldn't have been, and something that didn't behave the way it should have. If you explore abandoned places, just be careful, because sometimes it's not about ghosts. Sometimes it's about getting lost in a place that doesn't want you there. And sometimes, whatever answers back when you call out your friend's name isn't your friend. Story 13. I'd done babysitting jobs before. Easy money, usually. You sit on a couch, keep an eye on some kid, maybe watch TV, maybe do homework, and collect your cash. So when I saw the ad online offering $200 for 4 hours, I didn't think twice. Midnight to 4 a.m. Fixed hours. That alone made it appealing. No waiting around for parents who swore they'd be back by 1 but stumbled in at 3 and refused to pay extra. The ad didn't mention any children. That should have been my first warning. I called the number listed. A woman answered. Her voice sounded calm, maybe a little tired. So, I said, "How old are the kids?" There was a pause. "There's no child," she replied. "I just need you to sit on something." Sit on something? Yes, a chest. For 4 hours. So whatever's inside doesn't come out. I thought she was joking. "I'm serious," she continued. "Do you believe in demons?" "No." "Good. That makes it easier." She explained that she'd been cursed, supposedly. Every so often, she'd receive a chest or box in the mail. If she opened it during the day, nothing would be inside. But if the box wasn't physically blocked at night, something would come out. "That's how my last boyfriend went missing," she said flatly. I woke up and the chest was open. He was gone. I laughed nervously. This had to be some kind of performance art thing, or maybe she just needed attention. "I'll mail it to you," she said. "You don't even have to come here. Just sit on it from midnight to 4, then mail it back in the morning. I only need help on nights I'm out. $200 for sitting on a box." We met in a park so she could show me the chest. It was a simple wooden box. No locks. No hidden compartments. I opened it myself. Empty. Completely ordinary. So I took it home. That first night, I sat on the lid at 11:59 p.m., scrolling on my phone. The wood felt warm beneath me. Not hot, just warm. I told myself that was probably because it had been sitting in her car. Around 1 a.m., I felt a faint vibration. Then, at 2, I heard a knock from inside the chest. Just one. I froze. I turned off my phone and listened. Nothing. I almost laughed at myself. At 3:44 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text. "Anything strange happen?" It was from her. "No," I typed. "It's fine." "Okay, you can get up now." Something about that bothered me. She'd said midnight to 4. I waited until my clock read exactly 4 a.m. before standing up. The next day, she told me she hadn't texted me at all. And when I checked my phone again, the message was gone. That was the first time I wondered if this was more than a joke. Still, I kept doing it. Over the next 5 months, I sat on 15 more boxes, sometimes wooden chests, sometimes shoe boxes. Once, a sealed suitcase that made a wet shifting sound when I adjusted my weight. Every time, she said a new box meant she could throw away the old one. If she tried to discard it early, it would show up on her doorstep again. The boxes always seemed empty when I opened them during the day. The tricks escalated. One night, I heard a loud crash upstairs in my house. Around 2 a.m., I live alone. I couldn't check it. I just sat there until 4, sweating and listening to the silence afterward. Another night, I heard my cat meowing from inside the box. I nearly got up before reminding myself that this was exactly the kind of trick she warned me about. "Nice try," I muttered to the chest. After 4 a.m., I opened it. Empty. Eventually, I stopped reacting. I got used to it. The fear dulled. I stopped believing it could do anything real. That was my mistake. The last package she sent me came in a cardboard box. Inside was a small wooden chess set, the kind that folds open into a board. The pieces were carved strangely. The kings and queens had faces painted on them. Their eyes were wrong somehow. I didn't like looking at them. I shoved them back inside and snapped the lid shut. The size made it easy. I could sit on it in bed without even trying. That night, at around 2 a.m., my doorbell rang. Then it rang again. Then someone started banging on the front door. I didn't move. "Trick," I whispered to myself. The banging stopped. Footsteps moved across my living room floor. Slow, deliberate. They climbed the stairs. I could hear breathing outside my bedroom door. Heavy, excited. Fingers tapped against the wood. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might black out. The doorknob turned slightly, but the door didn't open. The footsteps went back downstairs. Then they started moving in a strange rhythm. 1, 2, 3. Like a waltz. I called her. "Hey," I whispered. "This might be my last gig. This is getting too real." "What do you mean?" "There's someone downstairs. It sounds like they're dancing or something." She paused. "You're still sitting on it, right?" "Yeah. I'm in bed." "You're in bed?" "Yeah. It's small. It's just a chess box." Silence. "What do you mean, chess box?" she asked slowly. "That's what you sent me." "No," she said, her voice rising. "I sent you a cardboard box. Empty. Dot." My stomach dropped. "You weren't supposed to receive anything else," she said. "You didn't leave the cardboard box unattended, did you?" The waltzing stopped. A long, teasing whistle drifted up from downstairs. I looked down at what I was sitting on. What if the chess box had never been there? What if I had imagined finding something inside the cardboard box? All the other containers had been empty. Had I just been sitting on air for 3 hours? I suddenly wanted to lock my bedroom door. If the real box was downstairs, or was this another trick to make me stand up? My clock read 3:58 a.m. The footsteps started again, slowly climbing the stairs. I don't know what to do. If I get up and the box is real, it comes out. If I stay seated and the box isn't real, it's already out, and it's coming closer. Story 14. I don't usually wake up in the middle of the night. I've always been a heavy sleeper, the kind of person who can fall asleep almost anywhere and stay that way until morning. If I ever do wake up, it's because of something real. At least, that's what I used to believe. 3 nights ago, I woke up suddenly. No dream, no noise that I could remember. Just wide awake, staring into the dark. Out of habit, I reached for my phone on the nightstand and checked the time. 2:13 a.m. I was about to roll over and try to fall back asleep when I heard it. A knock. It wasn't loud, it wasn't frantic, it wasn't someone pounding on the door in panic. It was a single, clear knock. Firm, deliberate. On my front door. I sat up immediately listening. My house is small. When something makes a sound, you know exactly where it comes from. I live alone. No one ever visits me without warning, and definitely not at 2 in the morning. For a moment, I tried to convince myself I imagined it. Then, it came again. Knock. Same rhythm, same calm, almost polite sound. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I got out of bed slowly, moving carefully so the floor wouldn't creak. I didn't turn on any lights. The hallway was dim, only faint streetlight bleeding through the curtains at the front of the house. As soon as I stepped into the hallway, the knocking stopped. The silence felt thick, like the house itself was holding its breath. I stood there for several seconds, staring at the front door from the other end of the hallway. It looked completely normal. Still, closed, no shadow underneath it, no movement. I didn't want to open it. I didn't want to even touch the handle. Instead, I moved closer and leaned toward the peephole. I looked through it. There was nothing outside, just darkness. The street light didn't reach my porch very well, so the view was almost completely black. No silhouette, no movement, no one standing there. I let out a small, shaky breath. Maybe it really was nothing. Maybe I'd been half asleep and misheard something. Houses make strange sounds at night. Wood expands. Pipes shift. I started to turn away. Knock. I jumped so hard I hit the wall beside me. That knock didn't come from the front door. It came from behind me, from inside the house. I turned slowly. The sound had come from the hallway wall, just a few feet away. A soft, controlled knock, like someone tapping from the other side. But that wall leads nowhere. On the other side is the narrow gap between my house and my neighbor's, barely wide enough for a ladder. I stared at the spot where the sound had come from. That's when I noticed it. The wall looked wrong. Just slightly. There was a faint indentation in the drywall, like something was pressing against it from the inside. Not pushing through, just resting there. Then it happened again. Knock. Closer this time, directly behind that dent. My mouth went dry. Something was inside the wall, and it was knocking to let me know. I took a step back without meaning to. My breathing got shallow. Every part of me was screaming that this wasn't possible, that walls are solid, that nothing can just be inside them like that. But the dent shifted slightly, as if something on the other side adjusted its position. I didn't wait. I turned and rushed back to my bedroom, slamming the door shut behind me and locking it. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped my phone. I didn't call the police. I didn't call a friend. I just sat on my bed in the dark, staring at the door, listening. At first, there was nothing. The silence stretched on for minutes that felt like hours. I told myself I was being ridiculous. I told myself this was stress, lack of sleep, an overactive imagination. Then I heard it, scratching, faint at first, like fingernails dragging slowly across wood. It was moving along the wall in the hallway. I could track it. The sound shifted inch by inch, coming closer to my bedroom. The scratching got louder, more deliberate. It was following the inside of the wall, coming toward me. I held my breath. It stopped, right outside my bedroom door. The silence that followed was worse than the scratching. I stared at the door, waiting for it to shake, to splinter, to explode inward. Nothing moved. Then, in a voice so soft it barely seemed real, I heard it. "Can you let me out?" The words were almost gentle, almost pleading. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I sat there frozen, staring at the door until my eyes burned. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't even dare swallow too loudly. Eventually, without realizing when, the sky outside my window began to lighten. Morning came. The house looked completely normal. No dents in the hallway wall, no scratches on the door, no signs of anything out of place. By noon, I had convinced myself it had been some kind of nightmare. Maybe sleep paralysis. Maybe stress. I even laughed about it to myself, embarrassed that I'd let my imagination run wild. That night, I went to bed telling myself it was over. Tonight, I woke up again. No dream, no warning. I reached for my phone. 2:13 a.m. I didn't even have time to sit up before I heard it. Knock. This time, it didn't come from the front door. It didn't come from the hallway wall. It came from my bedroom door. Slow, deliberate, right on the wood. And this time, before I could even react, I heard the scratching start again. Only now, it wasn't coming from outside my room. It was coming from inside it.